Alright, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis. The show is zero qualifications, zero credentials, and zero consistency when it comes to actually saying the tagline at the top. It's what we do, folks. Inconsistent person for an inconsistent podcast. What else is new? I am the creator of this podcast, and therefore it is a reflection of me. Just disorganized with a whole lot of thoughts just coming at you all at once, but I digress on that front. We got a absolutely loaded slate of games to go over here on the college football edition of Unqualified Analysis here. Obviously coming to you on Tuesdays when the college football episodes comes. Thursdays when the NFL comes. We all know this kind of a loaded week in both respects for varied and different reasons, but we'll get to that when we get to it. We got to focus on the college football right now. We got to get to it quick because I'm trying to get this whole thing done before I can go downstairs and watch, my Vikings go out and play. My other team, Mississippi State, just had a dandy of a game this weekend, a Sickos Committee special. We'll be getting to that and much, much more on today's college football episode. But without further ado, let's get into this thing. Try to keep it to a tight hour 15 this time, huh? Let's see what happens. We are back in the closet of shame, and we are back with the ice-cold caffeinated beverage. We're back in it, folks. We are right back in it. I got a hole in my armpit here. Jerome Ford has a low-grade high ankle. How do you have a low-grade high ankle sprain? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I digress. I digress, man. Either way, let's get hopping in to this week's college football games here. We're wrapping up week 8. First and foremost, where the hell else would I be going? Going to Penn State at Ohio State. The game of the season thus far for both of these teams. Ohio State at the very least played Notre Dame so far this season, so they hadn't had a total cupcake schedule. Penn State, kicked the hell out of Iowa, but Iowa's not exactly an offensive juggernaut. Didn't know exactly what that team was coming into this game, so everything was on the line here, and what we got was pretty much exactly what we expected. Absolute slugfest on the defensive side of the ball. Neither offense was really able to move the ball on either side. Kyle McCord ended up with 286 in the game, but 162 of that was to Marvin Harrison, who, by the way, of all the players in this game, obviously JT Tuimoloau, one of the best defensive players in all of college football. I think he comes out of here looking really, really good, looking like a future first-round pick, if I had to say so. He was a stud on defense. Penn State's defense came out looking really, really good in this one. But of the offensive players in this game, I don't think anyone came out looking better than Marvin Harrison Jr. Especially without Emeka Egbuka in the game, facing off against the best defense you've faced thus far this season. All Marvin Harrison did was catch 11 balls for 162 yards when the defense was specifically keying on him. Obviously Drake May, quarterbacks, that's the position that you go for at the top of the draft. So obviously Drake May, probably going to be the number 2 overall pick. Marvin Harrison, I think he's pretty much locked himself into number 3 over there. He is just an absolute stud. All sorts of raw physical talent over there. And having his daddy out there coaching him from the time he could walk out there, just a jugs machine addict from what I've heard through the various pregame stuff and whatnot. I don't know if there's a surer wide receiver prospect in the next draft. I'm going to be interested to see who ends up coming in and taking Marvin Harrison Jr. Whether it's the Bears taking him with that number 2 pick, whether they trade back and maybe get him still. Whoever ends up getting Marvin Harrison Jr. might be getting a walk-in number 1 wide receiver right out of the gate. He is absolutely spectacular. Back to the game itself, though. Ohio State came out and kind of just proved who they were. 20-12 the final score, and it wasn't even really that close. Penn State got it kind of close late with a touchdown, but overall, Ohio State, they scored. They really pulled away in the fourth quarter. They scored 10 to make it 20-6 in the fourth quarter. Really just kind of controlled this thing on the defensive side of the ball all the way through. It was a low-scoring physical matchup. Neither team even scored in the third quarter after it was 10-6 at halftime in favor of Ohio State, but that's just what do good teams do? They just pull away in the fourth quarter. Excuse me, that is exactly what Ohio State did. And I think we can pretty definitively say maybe not the sort of offensive firepower we're used to from Ohio State, maybe not a whole lot of explosive running game in this one, but with that defense they've got on the other side, they can beat just about anyone in the country, Michigan included. That game in the final week of the season between Michigan and Ohio State is going to be a dandy, like it is basically every year. The hottest rivalry in all of the land, probably the biggest rivalry in all the land if you just go back historically, and it is in a golden era of its rivalry hood. I guess that's a word, but yeah, I mean, Ohio State came out of here looking like a legitimate national championship contender, looking like one of the best teams in the entire country. Now they've beaten Notre Dame in dramatic fashion. They dominate Penn State for the most part, and that's all. If they just win, they win the rest of their games outside of that one against Michigan. I don't see how you keep them out of the college football playoff. Obviously, can't get two losses here down the stretch and still expect to make the college football playoff. But I think they can sustain a loss and still be right in there in the top four when it's all said and done. On the other side for Penn State, this was kind of a litmus test. I mean, certainly a litmus test for how good they are this season. I think a litmus test for Drew Aller, and Drew Aller just did not look good in this game. Did not look good at all. Ended up with, let me see the exact stat line here. I mean, 18 of 42, a robust 4.5 yards per passing attempt, 191 yards. Didn't turn the ball over, which you got to feel good about. But at the end of the day, I mean, just absolutely dominated. The Penn State receivers got mostly dominated. I mean, Keandre Lambert-Smith got 6 receptions. The next leading receiver was 2 receptions. I mean, just absolutely dominant, that Ohio State defense throughout this entire thing. And I think you just saw throughout this game, I mean, on the ground, without that threat of Drew Aller passing down the field, which has been a question throughout the whole season. They hadn't shown it yet to this point. Certainly didn't show it against Ohio State, and that kind of cost them. I mean, without that passing threat, they just keyed in on the run, and you got 1.9 yards per attempt in this one. Hell, even if you take out the quarterback rushing statistics, I hate the way college football does the quarterback rushing statistics, but I digress on that front. You're still looking at 19 carries for 72 yards on the day, just still below 4 yards per carry, which is just simply not going to cut it. I mean, again, all of the credit to Ohio State for such a dominant performance. Penn State, just maybe not quite on that level, not quite good enough to get over the hump and get to the college football playoff this year. But that being said, I mean, still 7 games into the season. They've still got a game upcoming with not Maryland. With I think they do have a game upcoming with Maryland. Besides the point, though, they got a game upcoming with Michigan where they can still, if they win that, they're right back in the thick of things. Could still have the chaos scenario where, round robin between Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. They all play each other. Each one ends up catching 1 loss in that whole thing. And next thing you know, we got 3 Big Ten teams vying for playoff spots. Still could happen. Penn State has the opportunity to knock off Michigan. I believe it is at Penn State this year, so they got a good opportunity to do that still. But I just don't think Drew Aller's quite there yet as far as national championship caliber quarterback. To be fair, I'm not sure Kyle McCord is that much better, but Drew Aller doesn't have a Marvin Harrison Jr. on his team. It's just, without someone like that to kind of offset a little bit of a subpar, or at the very least like average sort of quarterback play, you get a performance like we saw there, 42 passing attempts, 191 yards on the day. Kyle McCord, meanwhile, 286, 8.2 yards per attempt, and a lot of that was due to both the tight end Cade Stover and, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr., who we talked about before. So yeah, like I said, I'm lower on Penn State than I was coming into this game, I would say. I think we kind of learned, we learned a little bit about who this Penn State team is, just not quite up to that level of Ohio State at this point in the season. But the beauty of college football is you can look like absolute trash one week, and then in the subsequent weeks you can build yourself into something that can actually come back and vie for a playoff spot and challenge Ohio State later in the season. That's just again, the beauty of this sport, and you have all these young 20-something kids. It's all a work in progress at all times. There's so much variation that you simply don't get at the NFL level, at least not to the extent that you get it at the college level. So I'm not writing them off just yet. This is the first loss of the season. If they catch another loss, probably out of it, but they've still got resume building games in front of them. I could still see Penn State making a run here down the line, but this is a setback. Right now, they're not ready to do it. They're going to have to figure some things out to get on that level. Ohio State, I was endlessly impressed with what I saw in this game. That Michigan game at the end of the season, oh boy, is it shaping up to be a rock fight, and I simply cannot wait to watch it all unfold. That being said, Ohio State gets a big win. Penn State, big loss, but still everything they want in front of them. Let's keep it moving. Michigan just beat the lifeless husk of Michigan State into a bloody pulp. Some Michigan State offensive linemen. I mean, I'm not one of those people that just sees a big kind of dirty hit usually and says, oh man, that kid should catch an assault charge. A Michigan State offensive lineman did something in this game where he legitimately, I feel like, should be kind of held liable. Like if anything terrible happened, like any irreversible brain damage happened to the Michigan player, absolutely that kid would be catching charges. Because I mean, push the Michigan State. I don't know if he's a linebacker, defensive lineman, doesn't really matter in this situation. Push him to the ground. The Michigan player was on the ground, face down, and just blatantly the Michigan State offensive lineman, name escapes me right now, again, doesn't really matter in the context of this. All you need to know is he legitimately just bold-faced, led with his head to the back of the Michigan player's head. That's dirty. He should be suspended for the rest of the season. I'm not a person that usually traffics in that type of thing. That was a dirty play, a borderline criminal play, if anything irreversible happened to that Michigan player. Glad ended up being okay, but that was just a dirty play from a program that is just falling apart at the seams right now. What else is there to say? Michigan gets the win though, 49-0. We should have just bet on that one instead of all the dog shit bets that I made this week. 3-5 week on the board. Bad week on the board, and not much better off the board either, but it is what it is there. Duke goes on the road to Florida State. That's number 16 versus number 4 team. And number 4, Florida State, they take care of business in this one. 38-20. Riley Leonard went down in this game. Again, he was coming back. I think this was his first game back off of that high ankle sprain that he suffered. And I'm not sure if it was an ankle aggravation that he suffered again or if it was a knee injury. Either way, he goes out of this game. They don't let him back in, and Florida State just pulls away in the fourth quarter. 21 unanswered. Duke actually had the lead going to the fourth quarter, 20-17. Anything could happen. Then all of a sudden, just the more talented team takes over. Really love what Mike Elko's doing there with Duke, but sometimes you just run into a more talented team, and that's just what Florida State was in this one. Florida State in need of an impressive win. They get one versus Duke. Got it at home, which is advantageous for them certainly, but a win against Duke is nothing to sneeze at here. Duke has been one of the better teams in the ACC, one of the more consistent teams in the ACC as well. So this is a good win for Florida State in this one. Outside of that, there's just not really much to say. I don't know if I think any worse of Duke. I'm not sure I really think any better of Florida State as well. I think they're still right in playoff position. They have looked shaky throughout ACC play, to say the least. They need some real dominant wins, I would say. But what is the word need even really? What does it even mean in this situation? If they win the rest of their games, they're going to the playoff. You just rubber stamp that right now. But they've been flirting with it here a lot of times, and one of these times, we just saw it this week with North Carolina, which we'll get to here in just a second. You mess around enough times, you play with your food too many times. One of these times, it's going to come up and bite you, and you're gonna catch a loss where you probably shouldn't have caught a loss. Florida State hasn't had that happen just yet, but let's schedule watch here a little bit, shall we? Let's look at what Florida State's got in the schedule left. They're at Wake Forest this week, which no guarantees there. Wake Forest has been better than I think I expected this year. At Pitt, you would think that would be a win, but Pat Narduzzi has an interesting habit of pissing in people's Cheerios, so that's not a guarantee. Miami, you catch them at home, again, should win that, but Miami's a quality football team, in spite of what the turnover fest over the previous 2 weeks before this one against Clemson would have you believe. And then, North Alabama, you should win that one by a bunch, and then you're at Florida to end the season, which Florida on the road is a much different team than Florida at home. Florida at home is an absolute, I don't know about juggernaut, it might be a little bit too strong there, but Florida at home, I mean, they whoop Tennessee's ass at home. They can do that to just about anybody. I mean, Georgia's going to have to deal with that here, though it's not a home game, but it's in Jacksonville, so it's just right in the backyard of Florida there. But Florida is nothing to sneeze at here. They could Florida State could very easily catch a loss somewhere in these last 5 games of the regular season. Then obviously they're facing a high-quality opponent in the ACC championship game. Far from guaranteed here. They're going to have to continue to improve on what they've been doing. Just keep it moving week by week. If they keep winning, obviously they're going to be a playoff team, so nothing to see there. Really good, solid win over Duke, though, in this one. Mike Elko, by the way, on the other side. I mean, a little bit early to start talking about coaching carousel, but I would be floored, absolutely shocked if Mike Elko was still at Duke after this offseason. I'll just say that right now. He's going to have a lot of suitors who are forking over a lot of cash. It is going to be, enjoy this while it lasts, Duke fans, Duke football fans, because it feels like it's not going to last a whole lot longer. We keep it moving from there, though. Washington almost had an absolute disaster at home on their own field. They just barely sneak away with a win against an Arizona State team whose head coach, Kenny Dillingham, was legitimately in the post-game press conference, I don't know if it was post-game or a different time, legitimately just straight up said, like, hey, yeah, we don't have any bodies for field goal team, be it through injury or just a lack of talent depth. We just don't have guys to stand in front of the field goal kicker and keep this thing from being blocked. So if you are an Arizona State student who is, a good, 6'4", 330 pounds, or you're just 300 some pounds in general, and you would like a spot on the Arizona State football program, come on over. We are looking for guys to put on the field and just get absolutely bodied on field goal, but not let guys go and block the kick. That's the type of team that Washington almost lost to. Just averted disaster, though. Did not score an offensive touchdown in this one, but what they did get was a pick six to end up sealing the game. They get the win 15-7. Just an ugly game. Far from the ugliest on the slate, mind you. I mean, Mississippi State got a good case for ugliest game on the slate. I'll tell you what. Even uglier than the Floyd of Rosedale game between Iowa and Minnesota this past week. And that's saying something. But this was an ugly game. Michael Penix looked bad. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns in this game. At the very least, Jalen Polk had a good game, I suppose. 9 receptions, 102 yards, but outside of Polk, there was just not a whole lot going on for the Washington offense. Just a bad game overall. And this is why, Washington has been a buzzsaw all year. I've been making some money betting on Washington on the spread. But I stayed away from them this week because coming off of that Oregon game, that huge, monumental win over Oregon in such dramatic fashion in the final seconds there, those final couple possessions were just electric. You got a team full of, early 20-somethings, late teenagers. Coming off of an emotional win like that, this was a classic letdown spot. So, yeah, you avoided abject disaster. This is probably even a little bit uglier than I expected, but you got to expect a little bit of a letdown after a big-time emotional win like they got versus Oregon the previous game. So, no harm, no foul. It's all water under the bridge. You avoid abject catastrophe. You're still right in the thick of things for playoff contention. Michael Penix has fallen back a little bit in the Heisman race, but right now J.J. McCarthy's the odds-on favorite. And I'm going to say this right now. If J.J. McCarthy wins the Heisman over a guy like Jaden Daniels, I'm not saying we go over there and, January 6th up the Heisman ceremony. Not saying that, though. If J.J. McCarthy goes out there and wins, we may need to go over there and riot just a little bit, just a light bit of rioting there. No one needs to get hurt. We just got to let them know that our feelings have been hurt by what you're throwing out there right now, because J.J. McCarthy should not be winning anything over Jaden Daniels when it comes to a Heisman race right now. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Right now, J.J. McCarthy is the odds-on favorite. I am of the opinion that is going to change over the next couple weeks, and if it doesn't, boy, is that going to fucking suck. That's really all I have to say about that, but we'll keep it moving from here. Talking about another team that almost just had an absolute catastrophe, ended up breaking my heart there at the end as someone who bet on the over. I mean, UCF got right down the field at the end here, scored a touchdown, needed a 2-point conversion to tie this thing and send it to overtime. Ultimately, don't get the 2-point conversion, so Oklahoma gets the win at home, just barely escapes, 31-29. The over is dead. My soul is dead inside, because that was one of those big time bets that I was hoping to hit, and I thought for sure it was going to hit. I digress. No one wants to know about your losses, so we'll just keep it moving from there. But yeah, this was a game, another one where Oklahoma, I believe, coming off of a bye week versus after winning that Texas game. Again, another spot where you're thinking maybe a little bit of a letdown, and lo and behold, UCF almost comes out here and forces overtime. Ultimately, they don't, so we'll never know what might have happened if they did, but got right on the doorstep of it. Dylan Gabriel, another guy who I would probably pick for Heisman over J.J. McCarthy right now. He's had another big-time game in this one. I think 3 touchdowns through the air. Did he get another one on the ground? Did not get another one on the ground, but 3 touchdowns through the air. Not the flashiest numbers in the world, but still, if you look at the overall numbers for this year, I mean, Dylan Gabriel is just putting up some big time performances week after week. Former UCF quarterback, by the way, spent three seasons at UCF before transferring to Oklahoma last season. So, a homecoming game of sorts, although UCF was visiting Oklahoma in this one. But hey, Oklahoma didn't get the loss there, so that's the biggest thing. We've just been on the cusp, just right on the cusp of chaos all season. It feels like at some point something is going to give, and one of these big-time teams is going to drop one here that they're not supposed to. We got it this week with North Carolina, but it feels like one of these weeks in either this final week of October or early November, we're just going to get total carnage at the top. It feels like it's just been bubbling up, percolating that way for quite some time throughout the course of this season. One of these weeks, it just feels like it's the dam is going to burst, the volcano is going to erupt, and we're just going to get just classic, just pandemonium chaos across college football, and I'm waiting for it, just patiently waiting for it. We got little tremors here and there, and you just waiting for the final big time eruption here. But as of right now, Oklahoma remains undefeated, barely sneaks away with the win, 31-29. And again, a lot like I was talking about with Washington. This is a game where you're coming off a big win. Yes, it was after a bye week, but you're coming off a big win versus Texas. No harm, no foul in having a bit of a letdown game and almost dropping one. I don't think any lower of Oklahoma. They're still got the inside track to make it to the Big 12 championship, but some of those teams in the bottom of the Big 12 are starting to play very, very well. No guarantees here down the stretch, but we'll keep it moving to the other big-time team in the Big 12, Texas. I thought it was going to be the exact opposite of what we saw from Oklahoma and Washington. I thought Texas, coming off that bye, coming off of an embarrassing loss to Oklahoma in the Red River shootout there, I thought Texas was going to go into Houston and just paint the walls with Houston's blood. That did not happen at all here, folks. Not even a little bit. I mean, Houston almost came away with a win here. Texas ultimately comes back in the fourth quarter, gets the win 31-24 to kind of, seal this thing up. Did not come without a price, though. Also, I think there was a bit of a spot controversy. I mean, the refs just had themselves a week this week between college and the NFL. There was some bad calls across the land. I think there was a terrible spot in this game that ultimately gave Texas the win. What else? What else is new there? It is what it is. You escape with the win, though. So again, no harm, no foul. Except for there was a little bit of harm here because it would appear that Quinn Ewers has a grade 2 AC joint sprain in his throwing shoulder at that. So not a season-ending thing, but will miss probably multiple weeks here, which paves the way for. I feel like, strategically speaking, from the Texas program perspective, I don't think you put Arch Manning out there right now. I think you don't burn that red shirt. I think you keep him behind the scenes and you hold on to that red shirt for dear life as long as you can. I think this is a spot where the absolute freak alien that we saw in the spring game at Texas for quarterback, Malik Murphy, a guy that just looks bigger and stronger than everyone else in that quarterback room. I think he'll probably end up getting the start, and I am really excited to see what he does in this offense because physically, I mean, he's got a cannon of an arm, is like legitimately like 6'7", 6'8", like 260, 270, can run as well. Just a diametrically different quarterback than what we see from Quinn Ewers back there. I'm excited to see what Malik Murphy does in this offense now that he's getting his opportunity to shine. This is likely the last year that he's going to be at Texas, if we're being honest. Probably going to be a big-time transfer portal commodity after this year just so he can put out some tape for the NFL. You got to do it, young man. Arch Manning is going to start for Texas next year. I'm not breaking any news there unless Quinn Ewers shocks the world and comes back to Texas. Arch Manning is going to be the starting quarterback for Texas next year in all likelihood. Number one player in the high school rankings for the 2023 class. For a reason, he will be the starter there. So this is a good audition for Malik Murphy, though, to kind of show other teams what he's got and keep Texas winning and playing in crucial big-time moments for him, too. I mean, over the next couple weeks, I mean, Texas has got, BYU, Kansas State, who is really, really turning it on right now. The quarterback that they got in there, I think Johnson is his name, that they've been bringing in relief of Will Howard. I think ultimately is going to take that job, has been providing some juice for that Kansas State team that they had not had to that point in this season. They really are turning it on, and they're really turning into the team that we saw at the end of last year. Then they're at TCU, at Iowa State, who's been playing better as well. You got Texas Tech. I mean, no gimmies in there. I think the biggest quote-unquote gimme you got left in the schedule is probably Texas Tech in the last week of the season, maybe BYU as well. There's going to be some good spots for Malik Murphy to show the world what he's got, though, coming up, especially that Kansas State game. Watch out for that Kansas State game. They got him at home, which is the saving grace in that one. But Kansas State is playing better than anyone else they've got remaining on this schedule. I mean, I talk about TCU. They went into TCU and just lit them up this past week, and that was a team that is kind of underrated on a lot of betting projections and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, what Kansas State is doing cannot be ignored. Texas has got a tough road to hoe going ahead. Feels like this might be a thing where as long as Malik Murphy keeps the ship upright, though, and doesn't get another loss on that schedule, they should still be in line to go to the Big 12 championship game, and ultimately Malik Murphy should be, in line to hand the reins back to Quinn Ewers when the time is right, when he is fully healed. But yep, tough loss for Texas in this one. Not necessarily on the field, but personnel-wise, that is going to be a tough loss to sustain going forward. We will have to see what that entails as far as the on-field product, though. I like Malik Murphy, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they end up doing. Oregon struggled with Washington State for a while. I mean, Cam Ward, 438, a touchdown as well. I mean, played a solid game, but ultimately Oregon just pulled away in the second half, got a 38-24 win. And, Bucky Irving had a big game in this one, 129, 2 touchdowns. Oregon bouncing back nicely after that loss to Washington, I believe last week that was. Time flies when you're having fun. So, yeah, good win there for Oregon. Washington State, maybe not quite the team that we thought they were after they beat Oregon State earlier in the year. That'll happen. There was a guy on Washington State's team, one of the defenders, which, I don't know, the only way I can describe what this kid was doing, It was a long, I think it was a Bucky Irving touchdown run, Bucky Irving touchdown run, which, by the way, 3 touchdowns in this game. Bucky Irving, I mean, one of the more unheralded, underrated running backs in all of college football. He's a Sunday guy. He will be right there on Sundays playing well, if I had to imagine. Besides the point, though, I think on a breakaway run, I don't know what this kid was doing. Number 8 for Washington State over there in the secondary. Ran to the sideline like he was going to try and catch Bucky Irving. Instead, just kind of stopped, almost like you're playing Madden and the controller dies. I mean, just stopped in the middle of the play and just got decleated by by an Oregon player who was out there blocking. No idea what that was, but outside of that, Oregon takes care of business. We've been talking too long in some of these games right now, so we gotta keep her moving. Oh yes, it's time. It is time. Talk about chaos. Virginia delivered a little bit of that for us this past week. Virginia wins 31-27 on the road, by the way, at North Carolina, the number 10 team in the country, a team that was just riding high as all hell. Talk about another team in a letdown spot after what they did to Miami last week. I mean, they just looked ahead on the schedule. There's no other explanation for it. They got absolutely thumped by Virginia, dominated at the line of scrimmage by the Virginia Commodores, who get their second win of the season. They're 2-5 now on the year. North Carolina sustains their first loss of the year. I mean, Drake May didn't look great in this one. Marion Hampton looked all right. Tez Walker had an all right game. Hell, Virginia lost the turnover battle, still ended up winning this game somehow. Just a weird game that ultimately did not roll in the Tar Heels' favor. And this is just classic North Carolina under Mac Brown. They will be just good enough to get your hopes up and get you fired up for the future of North Carolina football. Then they'll just drop inexplicable games like this one. After how well the defense has been playing so far this season, having Drake May, the best quarterback in North Carolina for a long time over there. I mean, just after all of that, all the hype rolling into the back half of the season, you're looking ahead to that ACC championship, and you probably should have been looking ahead at this particular week at Virginia and making sure that that didn't go horribly. Ends up going horribly. Virginia gets the win in this one. North Carolina just could not have scripted it better. Classic North Carolina, man. What else is there to say? This was such a North Carolina loss, such a Mac Brown type of loss here in this one. Credit to Virginia, though, man. You got yourself another win on the season. Might be your last win on the season, but you got one, and that is what matters. They don't ask how, they ask how many. Unfortunately, you don't have a whole lot of those, but hey, you got a hell of a signature win on the schedule, if nothing else. Probably won't make a bowl game, but you can look back at this one fondly if you are a Virginia fan. Just keep thinking about that one until basketball season comes around. We are just dangerously close to basketball season if you're a Virginia fan, so you don't got to wait a whole lot longer before you can just forget the football team exists for another several months or so. Let's just keep it moving, though. Tough loss for North Carolina, man. They're not technically out of the playoff race, but going to be tough to sustain a loss to Virginia and still be taken seriously as a one-loss conference championship if they do ultimately get to that point later in the season. Going to be an interesting sort of decision from the committee if they are put in that position, but it doesn't feel like they're going to be at that point. Not writing them off entirely. They still only have one loss, but that's a tough loss to sustain. Keep it moving from there. Tennessee goes on the road. Ultimately, up 20-7 at halftime. Alabama, though, they just showed me something they hadn't shown all year. Not only does the defense play fantastically in the second half, allowed 0 points in the second half to Tennessee, just absolutely blanked them, dominated them. They scored 27 unanswered after halftime. They came back, which is not something that I thought this Alabama team could do. And they didn't even really necessarily run the ball particularly well. Jace McClellan ended up having some good numbers on the day, but as a team, they rushed for less than 4 yards per carry, if I'm not mistaken. And ultimately, this was just Jalen Milroe just putting on the big boy pants and going to work. I think he's one of the highest yards per attempt guys in the entire country right now. 10.5 yards per attempt, upped his yards per attempt numbers in this one once again. Isaiah Bond, Jermaine Burton had good games. You're starting to get players kind of emerge on that Alabama offense, and they've just steadily improved every single week. Had a bit of a hiccup there with Arkansas where they almost coughed that one up, but they're just starting to figure this thing out. They get a good win over Tennessee, 34-20 in this one, just dominate the second half. And they're really starting to turn it on here as we have gotten through the season. Again, a team that seems to get better each and every weekend we see them play. They're rounding into probably the best team in the SEC West, barreling towards a matchup with LSU that should be a dandy. We're going to figure out what this Alabama team is, late season Alabama, because again, these teams are work in progresses the entire year, and especially a young team like Alabama, constantly evolving and constantly changing, constantly hopefully improving throughout the season. That's what they've done. We're going to find out. We're going to find out just how much they have improved, especially defensively, when they face off against that juggernaut of an LSU offense. That should be a dandy of a matchup, but sticking to this one for now, I mean, they just absolutely came out here and dominated the second half, which is, I mean, credit to them as well, because, I mean, Tennessee, solid defense this year, better defense than they've had at basically any point under Josh Heupel thus far over there. A solid running game. They stoned that running game as well, especially in the second half. I have been very, very impressed with Alabama. After that USF game, just been a steady incline of performances since then. Really, since they committed to Jalen Milroe as the starting quarterback, it's just been it's been very, very good, and I would expect it to continue to go in that direction. Watch out, man. Watch out. Alabama, after being written off after that Texas game to a certain extent, they're going to be right in the thick of things when we get right down to playoff season, especially if they go to the SEC championship and beat a team like Georgia there. It's, the ceiling is the roof, as the great Michael Jordan once said over there. Sticking in the SEC, we got Ole Miss going on the road to Auburn in Jordan-Hare and just sneaking away with one. They got a 28-21 win over Auburn. Quinshon Judkins had a good game in this one, and just short of 6 yards per carry, had a couple big-time runs. Jackson Dart didn't look great, but did just enough to win the game. Auburn drops to 3-4 on the season, and we are, I'm feeling shades of 3-2 coming on this next week when Mississippi State faces off against Auburn at Auburn. Boy, is that going to be a delightfully hilarious rock fight, but we'll get to that when we start talking about previews for next week. Oh boy, you want to talk about a toxic one. Utah goes on the road and once again proves to be Caleb Williams' living nightmare. They win 34-32. Utah gets a last-second clutch drive. They go right down the field. Ultimately, USC almost came back and won this one, but they were just a field goal away. College kicker doesn't do what a college kicker usually does. The Utah kicker goes out there, nails it. They get the win, 34-32. And man, it is starting to get a little uncomfortable there with USC. You're starting to hear things like maybe Lincoln Riley isn't fully committed to the USC program, has one eye on the NFL, as I've heard some people say. Caleb Williams, you got dipshits like Emmanuel Acho talking about, now that the national championship is out of the question, Caleb Williams should sit out the rest of the year. It's just too much of a risk to his pro prospects to not play the rest of the games. And, you just don't love college football. You just go ahead, you can say it, you can admit it, you just don't love college football. That's what that is right there. Just an egregious, terrible take, and I hope he's taking it on the shins just constantly. That's just, Emmanuel Acho has some of this, by the way, is the guy that, if you remember a couple years ago when we were talking about javelin, someone throwing javelin at the Olympics, testing positive for weed, not being allowed to compete in the Olympics. He was the one talking about you can't have javelin throwers smoking weed because they might, be high when they get up there and just start throwing javelins onto the track. That's that author of that terrible take is the one that brought you this terrible take. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that just because of how asinine it is, but that's what's wrong with the coverage of college football nowadays. The playoffification of college football and the demeaning of quote unquote meaningless bowl games in college football just fucking makes me sick. Caleb Williams should continue to play. And that is that as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that's a real consideration going on, quite frankly. And if it was a true consideration and I were an NFL team looking at that, I would a little bit of sideways look if he did end up not playing again for USC this year just based on losing 2 games and then heading for the hills pretty much. I don't see that happening though, but we move on from there. The noise around USC is real, and it reeks of a bit of a culture problem with USC with what we've been seeing. Lincoln Riley didn't make any players available after this game to the media. The guy that's supposed to be the leader, Caleb Williams, has just had. I don't want to get ad hominem with this. I think Caleb Williams ultimately probably a good kid, but one is just cocky as all hell, which not necessarily a bad thing if you can back it up, which Caleb Williams usually does, but Caleb Williams has comported himself like a little bit of an asshole off the field. That's my opinion, the opinion of some other people. That's just going to leave that to myself. But outside, I mean, body language wise, if you look at that press conference he had when they lost to Notre Dame last week, look at what he was doing behind Lincoln Riley. I mean, he looked like he just wanted to off himself right there on the stage at the press conference. And if that's the guy that's leading you into battle every week, I don't necessarily love that. I think Caleb Williams has a little bit of growing to do as far as a leadership position is concerned. He'll get there, though. I think he will get there. It just kind of depends on what situation he goes to. That being said, these are just the classic calling cards. If the Chicago Bears have the number 1 overall pick, I worry for Caleb Williams' career. I'll put it to you that way. He's about as can't miss of a prospect as you can get as far as just raw talent is concerned. But he's emotionally immature enough to where if he goes to Chicago, make no mistake about it, I've watched this time and time again with quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. They will ruin Caleb Williams if he goes to Chicago next year. Mark my words, and you can take that to the bank. They will ruin Caleb Williams if he goes there. For his sake, I hope he goes somewhere with a little bit better culture, but probably going to be number 1 pick overall. So not a whole lot of great cultures that are getting number 1 picks overall. I digress on that front. I mean, Utah won this game, and credit to Kyle Whittingham, best coach in the Pac-12, just wins year after year after year, and he's going to be a problem for just about everyone in the Big 12 when he gets there next year. Might be the big dogs in the Big 12 next year with OU and Texas leaving that conference, but what else is new? I mean, they're shutting down Cam Rising for the rest of the season, which sucks. I mean, I would have loved to see Cam Rising in there, but get a medical red shirt this year. He'll be back for his 17th year in college football, so can't wait for that in 2024. But as of right now, even without Cam Rising in there, they got a good enough defense. They got a good enough running game to where they can still make a run at the Pac-12 championship now. I mean, they've got every opportunity. Starting this next week with Oregon, they've got every opportunity in the world to piss in some people's Cheerios and get to the Pac-12 championship along the way. And with just one loss, if they win out and they win the Pac-12 championship, Utah should be in the playoff if with the resume they've got, with the wins that they would get along the way in order to get that resume. Absolutely no question in my mind, Utah is a playoff team if they win out from here. So they got everything they want in front of them. Utah just absolute consistency year after year. You know what they're going to be. Every single season, they're going to play physical defense. One of the best defenses, not the best defense, in the entire Pac-12 year after year. They're going to run it right down your throat. They're going to play just good enough at quarterback to get them in position to win every single time. It's beautiful what Kyle Whittingham has done over there with the Utah Utes. Let's stick with USC for a second, though, because what more does Alex Grinch have to do before Lincoln Riley shit cans him, man? Like, what more does he have to do? Does he have to shoot a puppy right in front of you? Does he have to cheat on you, Lincoln Riley? Because there's got to be some sort of just unrequited love there, or much requited love. Something that's going on between Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch for him to go from OU over to USC. And hey, love is love, baby. Do what you got to do. If you two have found love in a hopeless place together, by all means, continue to have this beautiful love affair blossom into something even more beautiful than what it is right now. It cannot be affecting your football program, though. And right now, the favoritism, whatever you want to call it, with Alex Grinch over there at defensive coordinator, it is actively costing USC and Oklahoma over the last several years wins. What more does Alex Grinch have to do before Lincoln Riley finally pulls the plug and gets a guy in there that's, a little bit higher quality defensive coordinator? It's not all on Alex Grinch, mind you. It seems like they've not been good at tackling, not been good at closing out teams under Lincoln Riley. Again, rumblings about Lincoln Riley having, 1 foot out the door looking towards the NFL to, maybe go wherever Caleb Williams goes at the end of the year. That could be an interesting thing to watch this offseason. Certainly enough rumblings there to take it seriously right now. But Alex Grinch, I cannot imagine. Probably make it to the end of the season at this point. Not really much use in firing him right now, but what more does he have to do? What more does he have to do to be out of that job? Feels like we are reaching the end of things there with the Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch saga. Hopefully, if there is some love affair going on there, hopefully firing Alex Grinch does not lead to the end of that love affair, because obviously if it's kept Alex Grinch in his job for this long, it's obviously something beautiful and something deep and meaningful. So, hopefully this doesn't kill the love that they have between each other, but you just can't be affecting wins at the end of the day. Let's keep it moving from here. LSU shows absolute disregard and disrespect to our men and women in uniform. They beat the absolute holy hell out of the Army Academy. Just Army, not the Army Academy. That felt weird coming out of my mouth. 62-0 though. 62-0 in this game. LSU just beats the dog shit out of them. Jaden Daniels had another big time game. For my money, that's your Heisman front runner right now. If it were up to me, it's not though, so we'll keep it moving from there. LSU gets a big win. Missouri, is Cocktober? That's people are asking right now. South Carolina now 2-5. They lose to Missouri 34-12. Missouri just absolutely dominated out there. And it's not like Luther Burden even had like a huge game. 4 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown, had 1 long touchdown in this game. But ultimately, Brady Cook didn't light up the world passing. They just ran it right down South Carolina's throat. In defiance of that South Carolina passing defense, didn't need to attack that passing defense when the running game was as successful as they were. Missouri just rolling right ahead. They're 7-1 right now, and they're going to be catching Georgia in a good situational spot. They're going on the road, it doesn't help. Certainly does not help. They're going on the road to Georgia, but they're catching them right after what is, I think, will probably end up being a dogfight between Georgia and Florida down in Jacksonville. World's biggest cocktail party. Always a good time at that game, and I think it's going to end up being a close one. I think Florida's going to end up hanging in there and keeping it close. Just because, proximity to home always helps out Florida when it's all said and done. But after that, Georgia goes home, and then they're going to face Missouri. Don't be surprised if Missouri ends up knocking off Georgia, and lo and behold, they have an inside track into the SEC championship game where they face, whether it be Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, probably one of those 3 teams. Don't be shocked at all if Missouri shocks the world, though, in a couple weeks versus Georgia. That's going to be one to keep an eye on. South Carolina-wise, I hope they don't fire Shane Beamer, man. He's an absolute cornball sometimes. Sometimes he just maddening with the way he throws people under the bus, either on purpose or inadvertently in post-game press conferences. What do you really expect to do at South Carolina, though, quite frankly? Steve Spurrier had them playing well above where they should be as a program. Shane Beamer just had a really good year for him last year. Yes, they're 2-5 this year, but let's keep it all in perspective here. Shane Beamer is doing a good enough job over there to keep his job. Just a bad year this year. Sometimes when you're on a South Carolina, a Mississippi State level. You're just going to have years like this where you have a down year. Doesn't mean you're not building towards something in a year or two down the line, but for right now, they're just not that good. It is what it is. Wouldn't overreact to it if I were a South Carolina administrator, though. A battle of, a little bit of inter-armed forces branch rivalry here, though. Air Force goes on the road. Number 22 Air Force, mind you, goes on the road. They stay 7-0 on the season. They get a 17-6 win over the midshipmen of Navy. That's pretty much all I got to say about that. I don't really know any player on either of these teams just because, call me a bad American, I don't really know any of the players on the Service Academy teams right now. But hey, Air Force 7-0, really, really solid football team over there, and they just continue to roll, man. Continue to be ranked. Have to see how it goes from here. JMU, by the way, back in the top 25. Let's go. NCAA, you cowards, let them be in a bowl this year. You absolute nincompoop shitheads. What the hell did I just say there? I don't know, but give JMU the respect they deserve. They're a top 25 team after just coming up from the FCS level last season. Tulane, they escape from North Texas 35-28. Game that they were expected to win by a lot, but ultimately they get the job done. No harm, no foul. They're 6-1. The one loss being to Ole Miss, by the way. So Tulane, really solid group of 5 team there. Also, by the way, I think the top-ranked group of 5 team as it stands right now is Air Force. In your current rinky-dink college football playoff model where the top-ranked group of 5 team would be in the playoff, you would have the Air Force Academy facing off against probably Georgia. So have fun with that. This is the future you created. Just the proverbial you people that wanted the 12-team playoff. Here you go. Air Force would be in the playoff this year if you had it your way based on your rinky-dink model over there. That's all I'm going to say about that. Absolute joke that we're going into. I just hope the home playoff games end up being good, I guess, outside of that. I mean, I love the sport, so I hope for the best. I just think this is going to be some rinky-dink bullshit, but I digress. Minnesota versus Iowa. Had some controversy to end this one, and you need look no farther to know how this game went than the leading passer of the game, Kaliak Manis, the quarterback for Minnesota, 126 passing yards in this game. Leading rusher, Taylor from Minnesota, 59 yards on the ground. Also, by the way, Kaliak Manis had 126 passing yards. 101 of them went to one dude, so that should tell you pretty much all you need to know about the Minnesota offense. Ultimately, though, Minnesota goes on the road, gets the win, captures the Floyd of Rosedale 12-10 over Iowa, handing Iowa their second loss of the season. In controversial fashion, too, because who was the Cooper DeJean, fast-ass white boy returning punts for Iowa in this game. Returned a punt for a touchdown. Then ultimately they go back and look, and the officials rule that, and you can go back and look at the replay here at your own leisure. They rule that Cooper DeJean had like a invalid fair catch signal where really when you look at the when you look at the video there, he had his left arm above his shoulder, it looked like, but it kind of looked like he was doing kind of like an awkward keep the balance type of thing with his left arm, where he was just kind of like raising it up there to keep the balance, but not calling for a fair catch. Officials ruled that was a fair catch, so couldn't advance it. Ultimately, that would have been the game-winning touchdown. Iowa would have won this thing 17-12. Under still would have hit if you were a sicko that bet the under in this one. It could have been me. Didn't actually end up being me, but seems like a bet that I would make. Ultimately, though, they don't get it. Officials rule that it was a fair catch signal, and Iowa loses 12-10 to Minnesota. Brutal way to lose this one. Also, by the way, Brian Ferentz, that 25 point per game mark, not looking good. Not looking good. We are hurtling towards a shit canning at the end of the year. So for right now, though, we don't have to keep pretending that Iowa's a very good team. They're not a very good team overall. They have a solid defense. Terrible offense. What else is new? That is Iowa football, as I have seen it over the past decade or so, I would say. Ending off the ranked matchups here, UCLA gets a 42-7 win over Stanford. Quietly, 5-2 this year, UCLA. Dante Moore is just slowly plodding along. Carson Steele had 3 touchdowns in this one. Actually, Dante Moore, I don't know if he went out with an injury or something, but Ethan Garbers ended up finishing this game 20 for 28, 8.6 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns on the day. So not a bad day for him. Hope Dante Moore is okay. I don't know why he would be out of the game. I assume he sustained an injury early on in this one, was playing all right before then, but, hope he's okay. But UCLA gets the win 42-7. A team that, again, should not be written off in the Pac-12. They could very easily find themselves right in the thick of things at the end of the year. So one to keep an eye on there. Let's go around the Power 5 and see what we missed here. Boston College, 4-3 now. They get a win 38-23 over Georgia Tech. Good for them. Wake Forest, 4-3 now. They get a win over Pittsburgh. Pitt drops to 2-5 on the season over there. Still, should not be taken lightly. They are a team that could piss in some wholesale Cheerios down the stretch, and they will have an opportunity to do so with the teams that they still have left to play. Team to keep an eye on there. Not necessarily in a bowl situation, but team to keep an eye on there nonetheless as far as Cheerio pissing potential down there. Miami and Clemson got into an absolute dogfight down the stretch in this game. 2 overtimes ended up taken, and Miami gets the win 28-20. They start a backup quarterback. Doesn't matter, still get the win. Dabo Swinney is just, he's not going to get fired. Don't get me wrong here. He absolutely will not be fired in this game or in this season. It's just he's done too much of that university. 2 national championships. Countless playoff appearances to this point. He's safe job-wise. There's no question about that in my mind. But man, it's going to start getting loud and uncomfortable there. Especially if he continues to refuse to use the transfer portal, continues to kind of do what he's been doing, especially offensively, where it looks absolutely not a lick different from what it did under last year's offensive coordinator, even if you brought in Riley over there. Forget his first name. That's how that's how bad it's been this year, where I forget the hottest offensive coordinator hire of the offseason's first name, but last name I remember because it's the same as his brother Lincoln Riley. I digress on that front, though. Offense looks the exact same. It feels like there's a bit of a stranglehold over there on that offensive scheme that's not really allowing the players to flourish over there. Really, it's just been a brain drain over there on the defensive side of the ball. Losing Brent Venables over the last couple of years has not helped, and the willful shunning of the transfer portal. You've seen the effects on the team right now, and they've got a highly touted quarterback in there, at least top dual threat quarterback coming in out of high school there with Cade Klubnik. He's not looked great this year. That whole offense has not looked great this year. Whole team really hasn't looked great this year, and it shows on the record. They're 4-3, same as Boston College, same as Wake Forest. They're just a middle-of-the-road team in the ACC right now. That's just the current reality for Clemson. If they want to change it, they got to use the resources available to them. They could be right back to where they were before if they just start using the transfer portal. They step up their recruiting a little bit more, use the NIL stuff that has been afforded to them. They could get right back there. I have questions as to the willingness of Dabo Swinney to go out there and do that. Trouble a brewing over there with Clemson. Trouble a brewing. Again, Dabo Swinney, safe for this year. I don't mean a damn thing about next year or the year after that. We will have to monitor what happens over there with Clemson and whether there is a philosophical change. I am leaning towards no, which is not good news for the Clemson program and not really good news for Dabo Swinney's job security going forward. As for Miami, though, I mean, people were just declaring them dead in the water after they lose in back-to-back weeks to Georgia Tech and North Carolina. But what do? They come out here and they get a gutsy win without their starting quarterback. They're 5-2 now. They've got true freshmen that are really turned it on here. They got a guy whose name I can't remember, but he's been an absolute stud there on the defensive side of the ball. And if I just take a moment to go look at the box score, I can probably figure out who it is. Reuben Bain, I think it is. Yeah, Reuben Bain, 2 sacks in this one. more sacks than a lot of other guys that have been, I mean, some of the top draft eligible guys in the ACC right now. He's really played well this year. Francis Malagoa, 5-star true freshman offensive tackle they've got over there as well. He's really played well this season. They've got some really, really good guys, really good players that are just waiting for an opportunity there for Miami. This year, not the year for Miami, to make no mistake about it. I think they're still probably a year away, but look at next year when you got year 3 under Mario Cristobal doing what they're doing now. Quarterback question, we'll have to see what happens when we get there. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But right now, I like the future of this Miami Hurricanes team right now. I think they could be a really, really solid team. The U could be all the way back here in the next year or so. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that in mind. Outside of that, though, I think that pretty much does it for the ACC. Yep, that's all for the ACC. What else we got? Big 12. Baylor beat Cincinnati. Baylor's 3-4 now. Cincinnati's now 2-5. Yep, that's a game that did happen on the weekend. Oklahoma State, another team that's really sneakily playing really, really well here recently. They scored 48-34. They win over West Virginia in this game. Oklahoma State, a team that could make some waves down the stretch, man. And let's take a look at their schedule here real quick. They face off against Oklahoma at home. They face Cincinnati next week. Then they're at UCF, at Houston, and then BYU very easily. If they just find a way to win against Oklahoma, which is a big if, giant if, I cannot stress that enough. I mean, they're currently 3rd in the Big 12 standings right now behind Iowa State and Oklahoma. One of these teams is not like the others, but we'll keep it moving from there. Shout out to Matt Campbell over there at Iowa State getting the boys playing in Big 12 play. But if they somehow find a way to get a win against Oklahoma, they should win the rest of their games. And if they win the rest of their games, they're 10-2 in the regular season, probably find themselves with a Big 12 championship berth. After just how abysmal that 2-game stretch was against South Alabama and Iowa State earlier in the season, Oklahoma State could still kick it in down the stretch and find their way into a 10-win football season and find their way into a Big 12 championship game. I mean, Mike Gundy, credit to him for coaching his ass off with his back against the wall. I bought himself another season. Also, Gordon there, the Oklahoma State running back. I got to find his first name. Ollie Gordon, 29 carries, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns on the day. Just an absolute stud in the backfield they've got right there at Oklahoma State. And if you got a running back playing like that, almost doesn't matter what Alan Bowman does as long as he doesn't turn the ball over. Oklahoma State playing really good football right now. West Virginia, meanwhile, dropped a couple tough games in the road. Couple tough games in a row right now. Easy for me to say. Neil Brown, not totally out of the woods yet. We'll just say that. I think he has done enough to stave off that hot seat, make it a little bit cooler, but the more games he loses, the more he is not out of the woods just yet. So another situation to monitor there. Up next, BYU gets a win over just a disappointing Texas Tech team. Thought they were going to be a lot better than they have been. They've already gotten 5 losses this season, but BYU improves to 5-2. They get a win 27-14. Strong, the Texas Tech quarterback, got 3 interceptions in this one. Again, just a perplexingly bad season for Texas Tech, and it's ended up being a wash. On the bright side, though, Joey McGuire probably staying there for another year as your head coach. That's good. That's good if you're Texas Tech. We move on from there, though. Kansas State, already talked about them a little bit. They've been playing really, really well here recently. They've really kicked it into gear. They get a 41-3 just absolute demolishing of TCU in this game. Avery Johnson has really showed something at the backup quarterback. Not the greatest game in this one, but ultimately really played well on the ground. Will Howard had 3 touchdowns in this one. They played 2 quarterbacks to Kansas State, and ultimately both of them were over 9 yards per passing attempt. They throw for 4 touchdowns combined, 244 yards combined as well through the air. I mean, hey, if you're playing 2 quarterbacks and they're both playing that well, by all means, keep on doing what you're doing. I got no critiques. And by the way, Will Howard, not exactly a slouch on the ground either. 62 yards on 4 carries on the game. Maybe didn't quite have the volume of Avery Johnson with 16 carries, but that 15.5 yards per carry is nothing to sneeze at. It. Kansas State, I said it before, I'll say it again. Them and Oklahoma State could really piss in some wholesale Cheerios down the stretch, man. I mean, let's take a look at the schedule down the stretch here. They play Houston next week. They still play Texas. They are on the road at Texas with a backup quarterback, Malik Murphy. Sneaky game there. Could be a tough one for Texas going forward here. And they do, outside of that, I mean, not a cupcake schedule down the stretch. They play Texas, Baylor, Kansas in back-to-back weeks. Then they play Iowa State to end the season. So still opportunities for them to lose games right now, but Kansas State playing really, really well right now. It might be quietly a 4-horse race there at the top between Oklahoma State, Texas, and Kansas State. My apologies to Iowa State for not accepting their legitimacy just yet, but playing very, very well. Respect where it is due there for Matt Campbell in Iowa State. Even more respect, though, for Kansas State. They have been really, really impressing me as this season has gone on. That will do it for the Big 12, though. What do we got in the Big 10 outside of the games we already mentioned? Rutgers, 6-2, by the way. They're going to be bowling this year, 31-14. Greg Schiano, right back to his old form there with Rutgers. He should never, ever leave that program again. He may be at Rutgers for the next 20 years, as far as I'm concerned, after the just all-out adventure he went on after he left that program. Good to see Rutgers back and getting some wins over there. They get it at the expense of Indiana, who now drops to 2-5. Wisconsin, by the grace of God, they end up winning and they get the cover, so we're not 2-6, we're 3-5 on the weekend in betting. Just a crazy ending there. I think it might have been confusing the Texas game with this one, where Wisconsin got a very favorable spot and ended up getting them the win. Braylon Allen had a big-time game in this one. Locke, who I believe was the final quarterback that committed to Mike Leach at Mississippi State, gets out of that commitment, goes to Wisconsin, and balled out in this one in Tanner Mordecai's absence. I think, at this point, he's not been great this year, and he's been in college for 18 years. Might as well put him on ice with that injury for the rest of the season and see what you got in Locke in the freshman there. Wouldn't be surprised if they just roll with Locke going forward there for Wisconsin, but good win for Wisconsin. They're 5-2 now, and with that Iowa loss, it's all right in front of them, man. They could very easily go to the Big Ten championship. Not out of the woods just yet, but they got a good chance to go out there and get to the big game there at the end of the season. And Nebraska over 500 once again on the season. They are 4-3 now after getting a 17-9 win over Northwestern. And it's taken them all season to kind of figure out and gel out what this not Northwestern, but Nebraska team is. But ultimately, I think Matt Rhule has kind of figured, okay, you're not going to win games with offense. We're just going to have to get teams into absolute rock fights every week. There's a lot of teams like that in the Big Ten West. Nebraska is no different. They go out there and they get the win 17-9. Good to see Nebraska kind of rounding into form as we get down to the later portions of the season. Just goes to show maybe a little bit of patience, especially with a guy like Matt Rhule, who notoriously has terrible first years and then does nothing but win after that. I would expect we're seeing the same sort of trajectory there for Nebraska right now. Just a little bit of patience, just a little bit of time given to Matt Rhule. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Matt Rhule is going to get that rig rolling there at Nebraska. It's just a matter of when. For right now, though, gets another win. They're 4-3, in good position to get bowl eligible, which is really all you need in year one with Matt Rhule to kind of get some hope going forward. Looking at the Pac-12 here now. All ranked matchups in the Pac-12 this week. So, I mean, hey, we already hit on everything we need to hit on there. Let's look at the SEC, which, my favorite game of the week. And the one game we didn't talk about in the SEC because the rest were ranked matchups. Mississippi State goes on the road and wins an absolute barn burner, 7-3 over Arkansas, who is now 2-6. Dan Enos, the offensive coordinator for Arkansas, was fired after this game, rightfully so. Mississippi State actually looked good on defense for once. Looks like Zach Arnett has just taking the reins of that defense. They look a lot like they looked last year. I mean, when you got two linebackers like Buki Watson and Jet Johnson out there, you need to be playing better than they were. The top two tacklers in the SEC once again this year, and they need to be being used a lot better. Mississippi State defense playing very, very well. The offense under Mike Wright, not so much. They looked just bad. They looked real bad in this game. Had some tough penalty calls that ended up taking points off the board. A long run by Mike Wright in particular was taken off the board by, kind of an undisciplined play on the crackback block, but a ticky-tack call at the end of the day as well. Didn't love it at all, but this is... Mississippi State, this is the way we're going to have to win games now, man. If the defense can continue playing the way that they played this past week against Arkansas, we've just got to take teams down to our level and embrace the suck, man. I'm not sure we're going to be scoring a whole lot of points from here on out. We're facing a lot of really good defenses down the stretch. Next week against Auburn, boy, I am smelling, just sniffing out a 3-2 game coming along. Last time it did not work out in Mississippi State's favor. They lost a 3-2 game to Auburn on the road in the Sylvester Croom era. This time, maybe 3-2 goes our way. It's going to have to be that next week if we're trying to win against Auburn. And hey, I said it last week, I'll say it again. This is going to tell the tale of the season, whether we're bowl eligible or not. This week we won against Arkansas. This next week against Auburn, got to win if we want to be bowl eligible. It is simple as that, because I don't think we're going to win another game outside of Southern Miss to maybe get that 6th win and become bowl eligible outside of that. This is it. This is the season right now. If we're looking to extend it, looking forward to that absolute shit show it's going to be with Auburn next. I don't know what the over-under is going to be. Just blindly take the under, folks. Just take the under no matter what, man. It is going to be just an Iowa-level shit show from here on out, I think, with the Mississippi State team. This is what we have to be in order to win games, folks. This is beautiful. It's just beautiful, beautiful football. That being said, let's take a look at what we have got going on in Week 9 and get you out of here in decent enough time so I can go watch some football, watch my team maybe win, maybe not against the San Francisco 49ers, but what do we got? Wake Forest is hosting Florida State. Sneaky game for Florida State. Would not be shocked at all if Wake Forest covered the 20 there on the spread. Oklahoma on the road at Kansas. Another sneaky game for Oklahoma. Kansas has been playing very, very well, and I like that over at 66 too. That might end up being a bet. I got no bets on the slate, by the way, just yet. Nothing, no news to break on that front whatsoever. Haven't looked at all at the slate for this coming week. I'll get you all the bets you need on Wednesday, or not Wednesday, whenever I record on Wednesday. I'll get you all the bets you need on Thursday's show whenever it comes out. For right now, I like that over at 66 right now. It burned me last week with the UCF game. Kansas is just a really good offense, man. Not a very good defense. And Oklahoma, really good offense. Solid defense. I don't think Kansas necessarily wins this one, but I think they could really give Oklahoma a run for their money, and I think they do hit that over there. So I don't know what it ends up being, but that's probably going to end up being one of my bets. Penn State, they get a get-right game versus Indiana. They host them at home. They should win by, line is 32. That's a pretty accurate line in my mind right there. Georgia is going down to Jacksonville to play Florida in the biggest cocktail party in America, whatever you call it, each year. We're going to be seeing what that Georgia offense looks like without Brock Bowers in there. That's going to be an interesting sight to behold. Would not be shocked at all if the under hit there. It's 49 right now on the over-under. Would not be shocked at all if we got a bit of a low-scoring rock fight here between Georgia and Florida. I think that's going to end up being a good game. Currently, Georgia is favored by 14.5. I have a lean towards Florida covering that one. I don't think I'm going to bet on this one, but I feel like Florida's going to find a way to keep this close when it's all said and done. Texas is hosting BYU this week. Get a look at what Malik Murphy looks like in his first starting action of the season. Line is minus 17.5 in favor of Texas. I would probably lean BYU in that one, but again, not really one I'm super confident about, so I'm staying away from it. It's going to be interesting to see what Malik Murphy looks like in that offense, though. The biggest game of the week is in the Pac-12. What else is new? Oregon is going on the road to face off against Utah. Oregon is favored by 7, and I may end up betting Utah, folks. I love the way this Utah team plays. They're just consistent every single year. I think they have a penchant for bringing teams down to their level as far as offense is concerned. I think this could end up being a low-scoring rock fight. And I just got a feeling that this is going to be a game that comes down to the last couple possessions here, man. I feel like Oregon is going to have to sneak this one out. I think I still got Oregon winning, but Utah is going to have every opportunity possible to go out there and pull off a shocker. That's going to be a dandy of a matchup there on Fox there, folks. That's going to be a dandy. Notre Dame is hosting Pitt. Watch out for Pitt, man. It's not at home. Notre Dame favored by 20. Should probably win by 20, but you never know with Pat Narduzzi and that Pitt team. They're not a good team. Could end up being a team that gives you a run for your money when it's all said and done, though. Duke is going on the road to face off against Louisville. Louisville is favored by 4. I'm going to have to do my research on that one. I'm leaning Duke. Even without Riley Leonard in the lineup, maybe. I just feel really good about that Duke team, man. I just feel like maybe the wrong team is favored in that one. We shall see when it's all said and done, though. Good Louisville team. Should be a fun matchup there on ESPN on the 3:30 time slot between Duke and Louisville. Tulane's going on the road to Rice. Got nothing to say about that game. JT Daniels doing what you would expect him to do at Rice this year. I mean, 17-5. What else is new? He finally found a level of competition he can dominate. Good for him. USC going on the road to Cal. Who the hell even knows what's going to happen there, man? USC feels like a team that is just on the brink of collapse, quite frankly. So Cal could lose, could get blown out. Cal could end up winning this thing outright. I have no idea. I'm staying the hell away from that one. Washington's going on the road to Stanford. I think this could be a get-right game for Washington. I think they could come out and just absolutely paint the walls with Stanford's blood in this one. They're favored by 26.5. May end up being a game that I end up putting some money on when it's all said and done. We shall see. Air Force, now number 19 in the country. Your future, if it were a 12-team playoff, your future playoff team, the Air Force, whatever the hell the Air Force mascot is, going on the road to face off against Colorado State. No comment. Tennessee going on the road to face Kentucky. I may lean the under on that one. It's 51.5 as far as the Caesars line. Might be leaning the under. I don't think I'll bet on this one. I think Tennessee is favored by 4. I don't think I'm betting the line or the spread. I think it's going to end up being a good game. I got no great read on this one. I think they two teams that can really run the hell out of the ball, two teams that can play some solid defense. So if I had a lean to be on the under, I'm probably staying away from this one, though, entirely. I just think it's going to be a solid matchup overall. Ohio State is going on the road to face off against Wisconsin. And hey, think about what I talked about over and over again today. Teams coming off big wins in a letdown spot. 5-2 Wisconsin hosting Ohio State. Would not be shocked at all. I'm leaning. It's 14.5 the line favoring Ohio State. I'm leaning Wisconsin on this one. I think they could end up keeping this thing close. Also would probably lean the under, though. It's 43.5. This could be an absolute rock fight when it's all said and done. I think it's going to be a dandy of a matchup. I think it's going to end up being a close game when it's all said and done. I think Ohio State gets the win. I think Wisconsin could give them a run for their money throughout the course of that one. Excuse me. Ole Miss is hosting Vanderbilt. They should win by 1,000,000 points. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on that one. UCLA is hosting Colorado. UCLA favored by 17. I've got next to no faith in Colorado at this point. I might lean UCLA in the 17 in this one. Only saving grace for Colorado is that will Dante Moore start? Will he not? I don't know what the injury situation is there. That'll be something to monitor, but UCLA has been just rolling over the last couple weeks here, so that's definitely where I'm thinking there. North Carolina going on the road to face Georgia Tech. This may be another game that I might bet on. I love a team coming off a loss where they should not have lost. I think they're probably going to come out here pissed. Still got everything they want to play for in front of them right now. I think North Carolina goes on the road and they absolutely bury Georgia Tech when it's all said and done. Line is 11.5. Maybe seeing that again on the picks here coming up. Who's to say? JMU, newly minted top 25 team, 7-0. They are hosting Old Dominion. Favored by 18 in that one. And I don't know a damn player on JMU right now. So good for them. Glad to see them all the way up here. I expect them to win. Not betting any games on that because I don't know anything about the team. Either way, though, Oregon State is going on the road to Arizona. Jed Fish got that Arizona team playing their asses off. Noah Fafita, the true freshman quarterback, has been playing out of his mind as well. Probably outright took that starting job from Jaden DeLora, if I had to guess. I think this is going to be a really good game between Oregon State and Arizona. Two teams that are, low-key kind of physical presences. I know at the very least Oregon State, they're number 11 now, and with their one loss being to Washington State earlier, they're a sneaky good team in the Pac-12. They're still very much in the mix of things for that Pac-12 championship game, but I think this is maybe not quite as high scoring as you would expect the usual Pac-12 After Dark game to go, but I think this could be a classic Pac-12 After Dark matchup between Oregon State and Arizona this week. Arizona's playing their ass off, man. They are really, really playing well down there in Tempe. I think they're in Tempe. I can't remember between Arizona and Arizona State. Let's go through the conferences to see if I missed any individual matchups. Clemson's facing off against NC State. Clemson's favored by 10. NC State's not great, though, so, I mean, Clemson could end up covering that. Tough spot. Don't be surprised if NC State goes out there and gets a win there in that one. Outside of that, not much of note there. What's going on in the Big 12? Kansas State favored by 17 against Houston. I may end up taking that as well. Do a little bit more research on that front. Over under for West Virginia UCF's 59.5. I might end up taking that one too. I mean, there's a lot of solid little morsels here to take a little food for thought as far as bets are concerned this week in the college football ranks. Iowa State's facing off against Baylor. Iowa State could be 5-3 and 4-1 in Big 12 play if they get a win there. That'll be one to watch going forward. Cincinnati's facing off against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State could improve to 4-1 in conference, 6-2 overall as well with that one. All right, what else we got in the Big 10? Not much to write home about. Yeah, not much to write home about at all in that one. Pac-12, I mean, it's probably all ranked matchups once again, if I had to guess. Washington State's facing off against Arizona State, but who cares? Who cares on that one? It's on Pac-12 Network, so no one's going to see it anyways. SEC, obviously, my boys, Mississippi State going on the road to Auburn this week. Big time over-unders. But, ladies and gentlemen, the over-under for the Mississippi State-Auburn game is 43.5. I hate betting on my own team. I despise it. I may go out of my way to bet the under in this one. I have a hard time. I say very max. I think the final score of this game may get into the 30s. I just simply don't see a reality. Unless Mississippi State's defensive performance last week was an aberration, which totally possible, could definitely happen. I just think this game is going to be an absolute rock fight. Absolute rock fight in this matchup with Auburn. A must-win for Mississippi State as far as bowl eligibility implications are concerned. I just think Mississippi State's going to find a way to keep this thing close, man. I just got a feeling deep down in my gut that they're going to be there. That under at 43 that's tasty. That is tasty right there. I may end up putting that in the betting slate. Outside of that, yeah, there we go. That's all the matchups for this week. And with that said, what do we got on the time? Hour 22. Good enough. Good enough, man. We got this thing done before football got kicked into gear tonight. So, yeah, there we go. Thank you for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. We've got, 2 episodes a week. Tuesdays, we got college football. Thursdays, we got NFL football. If you want to, subscribe to this thing, help me grow it a little bit. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, pretty much just go out there, hit that subscribe button. Share if you'd like to, get this thing growing a little bit more. We're slowly but surely, I wouldn't say steadily, but slowly but surely we're getting a little bit bigger, day by day, week by week. Hey, maybe in the next 10 years I'll have a solid solid presence to fall back on. So I mean that could be cool. That could be cool. For right now though, we're still a small podcast. Help me change that, shall we? Help me change that a little bit. Outside of that, if you want to contact the show, shoot me an email at unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com or shoot me a DM. Probably just shoot me a DM on Twitter. Unless you're looking for like advertising for whatever reason. I mean, we get like 10 listeners a week right now. We're not really big boy balling as far as the viewership is concerned. So yeah, if you're looking for business, probably go to the email. Everything else, if you're looking to contribute to the show, just hit me up on Twitter at Caleb Verzak if you were wondering. Outside of that, yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, I've got no clue what I am talking about. One thing I learned this week, I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not prepare. I did not prepare at all. Uno momento, por favor. I gotta look and see if I just got one of these whatchamacalls, these whatchamahoozens, the facts just stacked here. I think I got one though. And here we go. This is one that I had from this past week. Spoke a little too soon. Just had one in the chamber. I'm gonna have to find another one for the Thursday episode. But for this one, in some areas of the former Western Front of World War I, there are estimated to be as many as 120 unexploded shells per acre, just 15 centimeters below the surface. That's wild. Absolutely wild. There's still that much unexploded ordnance on the Western Front. Just goes to show you how much of that they just threw out there in World War I, though. There's your fun fact of the day. I'm going to go watch some football. See y'all later. Hope you do the same. Hope you enjoyed this Monday night game, however it goes. I hope I do as well. See ya.